If you're looking to scale your business and learn from the best life and health insurance agents in the industry, you're in the right place. This is your host, Jason Hoffmann, and you're listening to the Agents on the Move podcast, where we profile producers who are consistently at the forefront of the industry in production and management expertise. Chris Smith has been one of the top life insurance agents for HealthMarkets Insurance Agency year in and year out. Life insurance has made Chris one of the highest earners in the history of the company. Some people think it is his down under accent, but it is his persistent approach to life sales that sets him apart. Chris starts us off with how he got into the insurance business.
I used to work as a business analyst in different banks. I fell into it when I moved to England in 95. I'd never enjoyed it, but it paid me a lot of money for someone in their 20s for sure. And so always found it very boring. When I moved over here and got married, I decided to look for a career change. My wife here was making money, and so I could kind of take a chance and go off on my own. And so I looked for a sales job with no experience required and found this.
So how long did it take you before you kind of figured out that you could be successful at this?
It probably took me about 6 months or so. I struggled with motivation. Working from home was tough for me at first. Prior to living in America, I'd lived in Germany with no television for about a year, so I had a lot of TV choices. Working from home was really hard for me. I went to a meeting. There's a big regional meeting probably 6 months into my career, and saw a lot of people getting these crazy checks for a good chunk of money. And I thought, looking at these people, if they're making that kind of money, I really should start taking this seriously. And that was a turning point for me. That's where I really started working a proper week.
So you think it was just the hours that you were putting in which made the difference?
Yeah, no, it was 100% that. You've got to pick up the phone, etc. But I just wasn't doing it. I was struggling to motivate myself.
So in this business, a lot of people can go through peaks and valleys. I mean, what do you think had been your lowest point since you started doing insurance sales?
For me, it was in 2009. We lost the biggest product that we were selling in the state of Mass. Decided products like that weren't available anymore. We did healthcare reform before anyone else. And so these plans were gone, and that was our business gone. So we had to do a shift. And that was definitely, for a few weeks there, that was my lowest point.
So what did you shift to? What did you guys do to overcome that?
We started doing life insurance. Things have changed since then, and we got some other products. But we had a big client base of people that we never even talked to about life insurance. And so, there was people to go back to and people going forward. So the products that we were selling that were very profitable were gone, but we were still able to sell them products that weren't so profitable and then hopefully get life insurance out of it as well. So that was the switch.
So why didn't you quit? Like, why did you choose to keep going in 2009?
I think once you start working for yourself, the thought of going back to an employer is just, that will never happen for me. So I guess I had that incentive, but I knew there had to be a way to get through it. And it was just, really didn't take long to figure it out. I was sort of getting over the shock of losing it, which in a way was a bit silly to not realize that was coming, but no need to quit. You just got to pivot.
So when you started bringing up the life insurance, I mean, how many term policies do you think you sold before you got to the bigger permanent cases?
My first big permanent case probably came a year in. I was probably up to 70 or 80 term cases before I sold a real good permanent case.
Do you just kind of figure it out on your own? Did you go to a seminar? Did somebody show you how to do it?
We had some training with HealthMarkets. There was a lot of training. Dallas did a lot of training in the beginning for us. We were the only ones really selling it, so we kind of focused on our state. There was that, and then a lot of webinars. You get emails all the time on webinars. I still sign up for them. Might not be something, a product I overly intend to sell, a company I overly intend to sell with. But if I've got a little bit of time, there's no harm in going on those, because you might just pick up in a 30-minute thing, you might just pick up one little tip.
So a lot of self-study.
Yeah.
So you sold some big cases. So like, let's say you have a client, somebody you could 1035 and they have a good amount of cash value. It doesn't get closed right away. What are some of the techniques you use to reach back out to that client to the point where you're not being annoying, but also being professionally persistent?
Well, we can use the first big one I wrote as an example of that. That particular one, it was basically a year, and it was kind of lucky he didn't show me at first, but it was a year before I got to see his policy. And he was a long-term client of mine, wealthy guy. And I think he even did it as a favor at the end. But I was putting him on Medicare, and I thought this could be my last chance. So I'd been chasing him up. Probably I'd call him every month and just see where he was at. He didn't have time. And then I was at his house, and I'm like, look, it's going to take you 1 minute to go get the policy. And within a few minutes, I'll be able to know whether I can help you or not. So it's 4 minutes of your life to find out if we can do something. If we can't, we can't. It's just persevering. And I'm pretty blunt. I just be forthright about it. And then I had another one that just popped recently where I wrote the guy in November, and this is again a different persevering, but this came from a high net worth financial advisor, this client. I'd gotten about 9 other referrals from this financial advisor, and they'd all been somewhat waste of time. Very high net worth people, they just needed help with health insurance or Medicare. That was it. They didn't need any other sort of products. Someone worth 20, 30 million doesn't need 100K in critical illness. And so these clients were all sort of wastes of time, but I kept helping the guy, and this one came along and turned out he had a big cash value life policy. And so in November, I asked him about it. He didn't have the details of it. He was down in Florida, and they were at his place up north, and he said when he gets back here, he'll do it. I called him at Christmas because he was back here at Christmas. He forgot to do it. And then I chased him again, and then Corona came, so then he wouldn't come back. He wasn't coming back for longer. And then eventually he came back, and as soon as we looked at the numbers, it was a no-brainer. He doubled his death benefit just to do an exam. That's all. He spent half an hour, and he was great. Some of those paperwork-wise can be annoying with the trusts and all that. He was an incredibly organized person, so he had everything on hand once he was there at his house. But I was consistently following up with him. That's the key to everything, follow up, without being a stalker.
Yeah, and bringing it up initially and then just identifying the opportunity. So the financial advisor, do you seek out financial advisors who don't sell life insurance themselves?
Yeah, I try to only network with those guys. Networking with a financial advisor who does life insurance isn't overly useful. What I have done with some financial advisors who do life insurance, a lot of them don't really like doing life insurance, but they do it, and I kind of will judge that. And if they're in that category, I'll work out a deal with them. I do this with P&C agents as well who do life insurance. I just kind of say, I'm going to be a lot better at it than you. This is what I do. And so if you give them to me, then, we work out a commission split. And it depends on the agent as to what the commission split is. But I've gotten a lot of business out of that. I 1099 one particular P&C agent $30,000 last year. And that was him just referring me business. And those referrals are generally slam dunks because they're people who have called into the agency looking for life insurance. And then occasionally he'll send me a name of someone. He might say, give this guy a call. I know he just had a kid, things like that.
So do you kind of coach them up to tell them what to look for? Like as far as say, hey, if you have a client, get their statement or try and get an idea of what their cash value is, or you just leave that all up to you?
Yeah, no, I do. And I had this with this high net worth guy where I had this conversation with him because he'd never really been that keen to talk about life insurance with me. He sort of blew me off a few times. And I said to him, let's talk about what I just did for your client, and went through it and then told him, with all your clients from now on, do a life insurance review, get what they have and send it to me. And makes him look good. And he doesn't even want a split. He's not actually even licensed, so he couldn't get a split, but he doesn't care about that. But it sort of just makes him look good. With this guy, it made him look great. And so I think he's more on board with it now. I think more could come from this guy. A lot of wealthy people have cash value life policies where they don't care about the cash value.
Yeah, they took them out in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
Usually. Okay, cool, man. So going back to like things that we talked about, what you've overcome, I mean, are there things you still struggle with today? For
me, it's to an extent motivation. I have a certain amount of money I need. It's a decent chunk of money, but this business is almost a double-edged sword. If you do really well at it, you can make a lot of money without doing much at all. So sometimes when you're making a lot, you can take it easy for a while. And then eventually that can come back to bite you. What I've now I've kind of made it my own thing where I like to golf. So over the summer months, for probably 3 months, I don't do much. I don't look for business at all. If it comes to me, great. But I don't really actively seek it out. And so I've sort of take those 3 months to probably only work 2 days a week, 2 full days a week in total. But then I work really hard the rest of the year. That's what I've made myself do, because why not enjoy it?
Yeah, right. You kind of avoid the burnout that way.
Yeah.
Do you have a daily routine or a morning routine that you try and accomplish each day?
One thing I've made myself do, and this is again based on my first 6 months in the job, was get up, shower, and dress, even if you don't have appointments. A lot of people, guys that work for me, and they don't do it. And I don't think you can properly work till you're up, showered, dressed for work, not in your sweats, wearing proper clothes and whatnot. That's the one absolute constant every day. But routine-wise, I'm not a big routine person.
Well, there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, simple things like making your bed, starting the day off with a task that's done, gives you a sense of self-fulfillment, I think, personally.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen that thing, right? That general, the college speech or whatever about making your bed.
Yeah, Admiral MacArthur. Yeah, that's a great speech, that Texas commencement speech. And several other guys talk about that, like Tim Ferriss talks about that all the time, too. It's something that I didn't really do until, I don't know, 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, we make our kids make their bed. Even now, from the age of about 6, they have to make their bed every day.
Yeah, that's good, man. Starting them off right. So what would you say the one big thing was that really helped transform your business? Would you say it was bringing up the life insurance? Was there anything specific?
It was actually, even when I first sort of started, everyone would sell the products we had to people without much money because it was low-cost health insurance. I looked at it another way. It's one of the things that makes some of my numbers not as good, with SUPs and whatnot. But I've always looked for higher net worth people. I think, to me, back in the high deductible days, even though, a $15,000 deductible makes it cheap for a poorer person, I actually thought that was better for a wealthier person. And so I've always tried getting people with money who are just looking to save money than people without it who this is all they can afford. So that sort of switch from what most people were doing, I think that really helped. And it, inevitably did help with my life insurance, but that wasn't what was in mind when I started doing it that way. So I've managed to get myself, for the most part, a higher net worth client base, which allows me to make a lot more money on other things.
So when you get those clients, they'll call you and they may have a $50 or $100 budget a month. And obviously you want to be kind and professional and help them out, but do you find yourself passing those along or trying to get through those as quickly as possible?
Yeah, we're a different state, so that doesn't really happen here because they generally get free care. It's different to how it is around the country. But I'll tell them what number to call to get that. And if they need me, give me a call. And sometimes you end up doing it for free, but it leads to something, but it's not the kind of long-term client I'm looking for.
So what do you think has given you the most satisfaction or sense of accomplishment so far in your career?
Giving a nice life to my family. It sounds cheesy, but and myself. I like nice things. But, I've been in all three of my kids are in private school, which is great. And my oldest is going to boarding school next year, which he's always, he's wanted to do that since he was about 6. Being able to afford that is nice. And it's a cheesy mantra of the company, or used to be, the helping people. But it is nice to help people. It really is. I like saving people money and putting people in a good spot. So it goes against my being where I don't waste money on stupid things, and I hate seeing people waste money on stupid things. I've got clients that drive me crazy where I call each of my clients at least once a year and they're on stupidly expensive plans and they just don't return my phone call. And that inside me drives me crazy. So, I like helping people with that. A lot of people can't help themselves. Sometimes I'd like to get involved in their whole life when I see stuff.
Right, right. What advice would you give somebody thinking about a career in insurance?
You've got to work. Everybody thinks they have no problem picking up the phone and cold calling and all that sort of stuff. You've got to make yourself do it. I never cold called. It was always hard with my accent. So I used to just knock on doors, which, I haven't done it for years. And it's a horrible thought having to do it again, because anyone who says they enjoy doing it is full of it, I think. But you've just got to make yourself do what makes you uncomfortable and do work that's actual work. You can suck away a day learning, and that's for night. That's not for when you can reach out to people. You can very easily make yourself feel like you worked a day when actually it was a completely useless day where you did nothing that's going to help you make money ever. Like I'll have reps say they did their continuing ed all day today. That's not something you should ever do during the day. That's a weekend or a late at night sort of thing.
So if you could travel back in time 20 years, what do you think you would tell your younger self?
So a lot of my answers I noticed come back to money. I was making in my mid-20s, early to mid-20s, I was making about $800 a day doing my banking work, which was a lot of money. And I saved a lot of it. I was kind of, which is smart in a way, but I should have enjoyed that money more when I was young. I should have backed myself that I'd be all right in the future, but it was always in me to make sure I had, I was kind of responsible. And, I had a great time traveling the world, and I lived in Europe and England and Europe for 6 years and did a lot of travel and whatnot. But I definitely could have done a lot more when I was young.
Is there anything that you draw inspiration from that you would recommend other people, whether it's a book, a mentor, a course?
I'm not like a mentor type of person, but I read a lot of war books. Well, I'm reading one on Stalingrad right now, and just what those people had to go through.
2.5 years of starvation.
Yeah, and I look back and you think these people are conscripted and all that, so I could have been one of them, and I don't see how I could have possibly had that in me, but I'm sure a lot of those thought that as well. We have a very easy life. I think any time I probably read too many of them, but
well, if all we have to worry about is the coronavirus and not running towards bullets, I think we got it pretty good.
Yeah, exactly.
What are some of your favorites?
Well, and I know what I'm reading right now, and I was worried you'd ask that question. Do you read a Kindle?
I mean, I do a lot of Audible, like audiobooks.
Ever since I got a Kindle, I never remember the names of any of the books I read because you don't have a book cover.
Yeah, right.
I thought you might ask that question, and I thought I should look at my history. I'd have to let you know. I can be reading, this book is, clearly obvious what it's about, so that's why I know it, but I could be reading a book and not have a clue what the title is.
No, I love that stuff, man. I mean, even a lot of the SEAL books and, those guys, kind of what they went through is just kind of blows my mind.
Yeah, I've stopped with the SEAL books. I went through a SEAL book phase, but they ended up sort of running into each other almost because, obviously I'm sure everything they do is the same, but it kind of starts feeling like the same thing. I did do one recently. I don't know if you're familiar with the French Foreign Legion.
No.
So it's basically the French SEALs, but it's for misfits almost. Like you could join the French Foreign Legion if you wanted. Anyone from around the world can. They take anyone, and you're locked in there. You're contracted in. They own you. They take your passport, and you're contracted in there for 4 years. And it's quite horrific what the people go through being in there. I'll find the book I just read. It was an English guy who'd just gotten out of jail. And when he was in jail, one of the guys was in the French Foreign Legion, one of his cellmates. And he thought, that's what I'm going to do when he gets out. It's very interesting. He changed his life by being part of it.
Well, that's awesome, man. Listen, Chris, thanks a lot for always sharing your ideas. You've been somebody that I've always gotten a lot from listening to you over the years. So thanks for joining us, buddy.
No worries, mate.
Everyone, thank you for listening to the latest episode of the Agents on the Move podcast. You can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcast. If you thought the content was beneficial to you, please subscribe to the show and write a review if you'd like. We look forward to joining you again. Thanks.